Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Fatima and today I've got a super exciting story to share with you. Imagine this, a book written 1400 years ago, describing things about human development that scientists only discovered today with microscopes and advanced technology. That sounds impossible, right? Well, here's the thing. One of the world's top scientists, Dr. Keith Moore, a leading expert in embryology, read some verses from the Quran and was completely shocked by what he found. The scientific details in the Quran are so precise that even today's scientists were left in awe when they saw them. Now let's talk about Dr. Keithmore for a second to really understand why his work was such a big deal. Dr. Moore wasn't just any scientist, he was one of the world's leading embryologists. His textbooks were used in medical schools all around the world, teaching thousands of doctors about human development. This book was so important that it got translated into different languages and it became a reference in universities everywhere. Now imagine this. You've spent your entire career studying about how human life begins in the womb. And one day you come across a 1400-year-old book that describes in crazy detail the very same stages you've been searching about. What would you think? Dr. Moore was mind blown. He had to ask himself, how in the world did they know all this back then? And that's when his journey started.
I first became aware of the Quran about 10 years ago when I visited Saudi Arabia at the invitation of King Abdulaziz University to lecture in embryology. And at that time I was asked about some of the meaning of some of the verses in the Quran, and I tried to interpret them as best I could, and that really started a study which has lasted for about 10 years.
Now let's dive into what really shocked Dr. Keith Moore. His task was to check out what the Quran says about human development and compare it to modern science. At first, he was pretty skeptical. How could a book from the 7th century be so accurate about something as complex as human development? But as he read, something unexpected caught his attention. Listen to this verse. The Quran says, "We created man from an extract of clay. Then we made him a drop in a secure place. Then we made the drop into a clinging cloth. Then we made the cloth into a lump. Then we made the lump into bones, and we clothed the bones with flesh." Dr. Moore was amazed because what the Quran described matched exactly what modern science discovered centuries later. For example, the Quran talks about the embryo as a clinging cloth. Now here's the crazy part. The embryo at this stage literally clings to the wall of the uterus, just like a leech. How did they know that back then?
This is a leech, and this is the human embryo, about 23 days. I think you have to agree that the similarity between these structures is amazing, and that it is truly, the human embryo is truly leech-like.
Next, the Quran says that embryo becomes a lump. This is super interesting because at this stage, the embryo actually looks like something that's been chewed up, which matches what modern embryologists see under a microscope. Again, how did they know that over 1400 years ago?
We created the drop into a leech-like structure. Then of that leech-like structure, we made a chewed-like substance, which you can see here.
Then the Quran says bones form first, then muscles and flesh grow around them. For centuries, scientists thought that bones and muscles develop at the same time, but Dr. Moore and other researchers confirmed that bones form first, then muscles grow around them, just as the Quran describes.
Then we had the bones, and then we covered the bones with flesh. And after the bones form, they become surrounded or clothed by flesh or muscles, which acquire attachments to them.
How could a person from the 7th century describe the stages of human development with such accuracy without any scientific tools or knowledge? Dr. Moore said, "It is clear to me that these statements must have come to Muhammad from God, because almost all of this knowledge wasn't discovered until centuries later."
The only reasonable conclusion is that these descriptions were revealed to Muhammad from God. He could not have known such details because he was an illiterate man with absolutely no scientific training.
So, did Dr. Keith Moore convert to Islam? Some people say he did, but there is no official record of it. What we do know is that he was really amazed by what the Quran said about human development. In fact, he mentioned some Islamic references in his famous textbook, The Developing Human, Clinically Oriented Embryology. Even if he didn't become Muslim, his work made many scientists realize just how accurate the Quran is in describing human development.
In an indirect way, maybe God is telling me that this is the right thing for me to do, to help explain your holy book to you. But I've always said that it's probably mean more as a non-Muslim for me to tell people around the world that I believe that what is recorded in the Quran is accurate according to our present knowledge.
So here's the big question. Could a book from 1400 years ago really know things that we only discovered recently, or is it just a coincidence? I'd love to know what you think. Leave a comment below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories. See you next time.